So for the filming of our music video, Crooked Smile, we utilized the DSLR Canon EOS 650D, which is the camera that was issued by the school. With this, we were able to use various different shots and camera angles to get the desired effect we wanted. Some examples I'll go through briefly now is we used the handheld shots as we felt that this evoked the theme of insecurities and unhappiness than what a still shot would have done. The particular scene in which this was used was in the high street. We have her she stands up at like the front of it, and then you have loads of people going past her. And the reason we decided to use the handheld cameras of this is you can kind of feel the loneliness more when there's a lot of couples walking past her and then she's just standing there by herself. We used a lot of centrally framed shots in this, as we thought this was the most professional sort of shot that we had to go for. There was a lot of complaints with some of the blurry shots that we used, but that was because they didn't quite understand the effect we were going for. The blurry shots we used were to show kind of a feeling of unease, and it was to make it unsettling, to reflect the mood of the scene. And there's the scene in which she's in the mirror and it's kind of blurry. What we wanted to do with that was we wanted to add the element of she's not comfortable about the way she looks and she doesn't want people to see her, so blurring it out by using the autofocus was a way that we were able to do that. We also used the loose frame with her sitting by herself, that again implies loneliness. We were already quite experienced with the camera, but we thought for this music video, why not go ahead and experiment with different shots. The high and low angle shots, those are usually associated with hip hop, so we tried to use this to emphasize her low position or vulnerability. But when we were looking at other videos, in the traditional hip hop videos, that's used for the women who are dancing alongside the men, and they just totally get disregarded. So as this was our main character, we didn't want that effect to happen to her, and we didn't want to dismiss her as a secondary character. So we decided not to use that. Also, now with the pans, we included pans before, but after audience feedback, that bit had to completely be cut out. A lot of mid shots, close-ups were used to kind of implement the audience into the action and make them feel sympathy for the character, even though it wasn't a real character. Was from the feedback we got, everyone was sympathizing with the character. The group shot we used was very effective because that showed kind of a coming together of people and her finding her new community. There was a bullying scene at the very start that people criticized for being shaky, but we had to have that because the shakiness of it kind of made you feel that you were in the scene and you were there witnessing what happened, and you were kind of powerless, so you couldn't do anything about it, and that kind of reflected the same thing for her. She couldn't do anything about it as well. In terms of when we went on to the editing and digital technologies, the first decision we had to make was either to use iMac that we were comfortable with and had used before, or to go and use Final Cut Pro. When we were using Final Cut Pro, some of the effects and transitions that we were able to do on iMovie we weren't able to do on Final Cut Pro, and Final Cut Pro just seemed way too maybe advanced for us, but we decided to use iMovie. On iMovie we were able to put all the footage on it, so we could rearrange clips in the correct place and sequence, because what we were trying to go for, a sequence of from her being in her low, so from a place of darkness into a place of light. So throughout the sequence you can see a transformation from her being totally insecure, unhappy and lonely, to then goes to her accepting her insecurities, being joyful.
Also, with that, I think we actually visually show that, because obviously, as the song does become more upbeat and things do become more positive, there's actually a part in which we use 3-point lighting to literally show her coming from the dark and shining and being bright and coming into the light. So
Another thing that in terms of editing that we're gonna use quick cuts because that's what you're accustomed to with the hip hop. But with the video we were trying to do and the emotion we were trying to
Evoke.
yeah, we needed those long cuts. So for scenes such as where she's lying on the bed and then looks into space, we needed that to be a long. We needed that to be a long cut. The bullion, we needed that to be long to kind of stress the emotion that she was feeling. We tried to go for a black and white effect when we were editing it, but when we done it, it didn't go for the desired effect. Because with the black and white, we kind of wanted to reflect the mood of unhappiness and darkness, but it didn't quite go with, and loneliness, but it didn't quite go with what we wanted to do. In terms of the lyrics, we used the lyrics very well with the editing because there's various times where you'll listen to the lyrics and you'll look at the screen and think, oh, that goes well. Examples of this is the scene where she's looking in the mirror. The scene goes, it's something like putting makeup on, and she's kind of brushing her face, thinking, maybe I need some makeup on. Also with that, like with the lighting scene that it was just referring to, the lyrics of that now, it's you're the one that was trying to keep me weight down, but like the sun, I know I found my way back round. So that's kind of showing that she's got over it. So from the dark into the light.
And obviously, going along with the fact that we do subvert the whole hip hop genre, the fact that she is pictured at a high angle does not mean that we are trying to disempower her.
Now for the chorus, that was a bit more difficult because with the montage that we had, we wanted it to be in for that particular scene. So that included us getting first extreme close-ups of the lip syncing. And in fact, we must have recorded at least 20 people's doing a lip sync. We only ended up using about 8 or 10. But in terms of editing it to make sure that the lips went at the exact right time and it looked like what the lips were saying is actually what the songs were going, that was very difficult. So in terms of the track, the first part of the track, the message that we want to convey and the message through the lyrics is the same about the insecurities and being able to accept them. But the second part of the lyrics kind of goes off that, and the theme is more about the society in America and more about racism, discrimination. That could have put us off, but we decided to use the dark tone to link in with the dark clips, the memories that we had of her in the dark days of her being alone, of her being bullied, of people not wanting to be there. We decided to put those memories in that place. The tone of the clip fit in with the tone of the song, and so they complemented each other very well.
Also, I'd like to add, going back to the cinematography side of it, we did actually use, and obviously you talked about the blurry camera or the shaky camera, and we felt that that had a purpose. Obviously, using a kinetic camera and the fact it was handheld as well, we thought brought a sense of authenticity or verisimilitude to the video, to be honest. And also, and another thing to add, when our female protagonist is shot by herself, sitting alone, we used a loose frame, and this is supposed to emphasize her loneliness.
So for the magazine advert, the chosen technology that we used was Photoshop. Now Photoshop offered all the options we needed in terms of coloring effects, cropping tools, selective tools, etc. And then it was very easy to use because there's an option down the side where you can see all the effects and layers that you've added. So if you look at it and see you've made a mistake, it's easy to then click right back to that place and then obviously edit it. In terms of the magazine advert, we didn't really want to use any still images because when we were looking at it, there was none that really looked like it could be suitable for the front cover. So we had to draw out the design and then use the digital technology, which is the scanner, to then scan it into Photoshop. And then with Photoshop, we were able to alleviate the excess white spaces around the picture, therefore giving it a professional look. Onto the Digipack now. We looked at using Photoshop to do it, but thought that Photoshop wouldn't quite be able to do it, so we done Fireworks. Now Fireworks as well, this had a lot of tools. So the pointer tool, this was very good because with this you were able to, with all the images that you got, you were able to just drag the images and put them exactly where you wanted to. This came in handy when we were making our background, in fact, because we had the set image of the background we wanted to use, which was a kind of darkish background with clouds, and then there was a yellow lining inside that we had to add. And at first we couldn't just put it on it because it didn't look quite right, so we had to use the screen grab to make sure that all the elements came and fitted well. So that worked very well. One of the most key tools on Fireworks is a tool called Magic Wand. Now what this lets you do is, if you were to incorporate an image from the internet, say that had a black background or white background, with Magic Tool you are simply able to click on that, and that would literally get rid of the original background and then have the background that you already have. So it seems as if the image that you've got is the one that you already had instead of one that you've just taken from the internet and placed onto the thing.